This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite horrors, and share original spooky stories. I'm Jeff C. Carter, and I'm repping the 80s.
I'm Ryan Gerasi, and I'm repping the 90s.
This is our Put Up Your Spooks format, where we review TV from the 80s and 90s.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's halfway to Halloween, so you know what that means. We're putting up 2 extra spooky spooks for you holiday kooks. In this corner, weighing in at 2 tons and black as the blackest All-Hallows cat, Knight Rider, and the challenger with ice wire, cloth, and wood in its veins, Family Matters. The time is past due to jump out and say boo, and we're doing it all for you on Put Up Your Spooks.
This week's theme:
Halfway to Halloween 2024. So Ryan, there are many great Halloween special episodes of television that we could explore, but we had some unfinished business. Last year, for our Halfway to Halloween special, we did Family Matters and Knight Rider, and it only seemed right that we hit those shows up again.
Why, yes.
So my episode of Knight Rider is called Fright Knight. This is a season 4 episode, which you know because in the opening credits they've added Super Pursuit mode, which was my shit. Did you ever watch it with Super Pursuit mode?
Hell, I don't remember, man. I was a tiny little baby when that show was on. I loved it, but I don't remember a thing about it, except for there was a car.
Yeah, in the later seasons, Kit got rebuilt a couple times, and they added all these upgrades, and one of them was Super Pursuit mode, where he would transform into this hyper aerodynamic vehicle. It was awesome, which basically meant they would just speed up the film.
Yeah.
So the episode starts with a loving helicopter flyover of the Universal Studios backlot.
I was happy to see that.
Yeah, in the California sun.
Just all the universalness of the entire episode.
It really delivered. So we go down to ground level for the remake of Raging Sky. Karen Bennett, VP of production, marches through a Western set in a big-shouldered power suit. We see someone who is clearly David Hasselhoff's stunt double getting ready to do a scene. Karen is worried about this guy doing stunts because they've had a bunch of accidents on the set already, but the director just wants to get on with it because he took a hit to make this film. He could be making a movie with bikini babes on a beach in Maui, as he tells us repeatedly. As they're getting ready for the stunt, a mysterious figure starts to tamper with the special effects. Action. David Hasselhoff's stunt double runs through the explosions. He's shooting a machine gun behind him as he goes, but then he gets caught up in a 5th fiery blast. As the crew gathers and they load the stuntman into the back of an ambulance, there are whispers of the Phantom of Stage 28. Have you ever seen the 18-wheeler that Kit will drive into?
I've seen it now.
Cut to the roaming headquarters of Flag, where Michael Knight and his crew are finding out the mission for the day. Their mission is to find out who is trying to sabotage this film. It's over budget. It's like Waterworld levels of Hollywood scandal and industry outrage. So they dispatch Michael to the soundstage, and we get that classic backlot scene where you have a bunch of disparate, wacky characters strolling by.
The kind of thing that never... We can both speak from personal experience, dear listeners. The kind of thing that never actually happens on a backlot. I saw people in costume once in 3 months working on the Sony backlot. And it was nighttime. It was like 9 p.m. They must have been doing a night shoot. And they were just hanging out outside the soundstage. But it wasn't like wacky, crazy, disparate costumes. It was just like a couple of people with top hats.
I remember one of my first jobs in LA in the entertainment industry was working in the Fox Studios building, Nakatomi Tower, and I had to deliver something down to the Fox lot. And I was like, what if after I delivered this package, I wander around the Fox lot for a bit. And so I was walking around, and I was like, just act like you belong here, act like you're working here. And I saw this security guard kind of eyeing me, and I was like, oh boy, here it comes. And then I realized at the last minute it was Ricky Schroeder from the set of like NYPD Blue or something like that. He was dressed as a cop.
He was so
like, oh,
in character.
It's just Ricky Schroeder. But here in this classic backlot scene, we've got a pineapple, a showgirl, a karate man, a pair of concubines, a Polynesian tribesman, and an explorer with a spear through his chest struggling to get into a phone booth. And they really milked that slapstick scene. It was fantastic. So, cut to Karen's secretary, played by one Mr. Robert Englund.
Just like Miss Bennett's 1015. Let's see, Michael Knight, Foundation for Law and Government.
You got it. She's expecting me.
Oh, very quick, Mr. Knight. We're all expecting you. I'm Edward Kent, Ms. Bennett's executive secretary. I encode 90 words a minute. I take shorthand at 120. I do not, however, make coffee, nor have I ever been chased around a desk.
Now, what do you think the timing of this is? Do you think this is pre or post Freddy?
Well, guess what? I looked it up, so I don't know if it's fair for me to answer. I could have sworn it was pre because he looks like a tiny little baby.
It's funny. Robert Englund looks so young because, of course, you and I have seen him most often as a monster in burn makeup.
Yeah.
Seeing him without the makeup, he looks so young except for the male pattern baldness.
Right.
He's like a gawky teenager with male pattern baldness. But anyway, this takes place after Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
It must have been a heady time for old Robert Englund.
Indeed. Michael goes into Karen's office. Gavin's there, and they give him a lore dump on the Phantom of Stage 28.
Yeah, the Phantom of Stage 28. It started with the original Raging Sky. It was a nightmare, one accident after another.
Do you think there could be a connection?
Oh, no. No way. No, the person behind them was Dennis Darrow. He was an actor who was originally turned down for the starring role in the film. He vowed it would never get made. The man's been dead for years.
Of course, his body's never been found. Who knows? Maybe his corpse sprouted a cape and he went wherever phantoms go.
The bottom line is he still could be alive.
Really, Mr. Knight? I mean, his car went off a cliff and exploded. There was nothing left but ashes and smoke.
After, a mysterious man on a motorcycle tries to run Michael down, but a last-second warning from Kit allows him to somersault out of the way. Kit swoops in, the bike does a sick stunt, and then wipes out.
Kit, scan his vitals.
Michael, it has no vitals.
What have we here?
A 1200cc four-cylinder direct-drive motorcycle and state-of-the-art robot hardwired to the frame.
They're a robot.
Kit literally says, Michael, it's a robot.
Kit issues a second warning. The robot is also a bomb. Cut to Michael is interviewing the head of FX on Raging Sky, Sam Clifford. He's been fired. They're letting him go for negligence. He's taken the blame for all of these mysterious accidents. Kit tells them that the detonator device was tampered with. And Sam swears he saw a guy dressed up like the Phantom on the day of the accident. Michael goes to check out a prop warehouse. There's an OG Cylon costume there. That made me very happy.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember that on 6 Demon Bag, that was listed as one of my impossible costumes. Michael is investigating a warehouse full of props when the Phantom appears and starts shooting him with a compound bow. Michael grabs a prop shield, blocks the arrows, and the Phantom swings across the warehouse on a rope. So Michael gets some intel. The producer, Gavin, has taken out a huge insurance policy on the movie and its stars. Michael goes back to set and meets up with Liz Preston, the starlet, who just got a $4 million insurance policy placed on her. The Phantom drops a light on Liz's makeup chair, but another last-minute warning from Kit allows Michael to get Liz out of danger. Michael Knight meets up with the VP of production and doesn't mention that like an exploding robot motorcycle man like tried to run him down, or that someone dressed as a Phantom was taking pot shots at him with a compound bow. He's like, yeah, I think there's something to this rumor about the Phantom. But it's like, dude, there was an exploding robot on a motorcycle. Like, you've got evidence now. You've got, like, probable cause. This isn't a mystery anymore. Clearly, someone is trying to kill people on the set of this movie. You know, there's all this insurance money against this movie, and Michael is like, well, maybe the safest thing to do is just to cancel the production. You're going to make your money back anyway because of insurance.
Michael, I am not in this business to collect insurance. I'm in this business to make movies. Women in positions of power are still considered a novelty. I have to finish what I started.
Meanwhile, Gavin, the producer, has a clandestine meeting with the Phantom. He wants this movie shut down because he needs that insurance money. The Phantom says, everything was going great until you brought Michael Knight into this. Speaking of Michael Knight, he goes back to stage 28, and the Phantom blows up the catwalk he's on. Michael is literally hanging by a rope when Kit busts in through the wall and catches him in the sunroof. Michael has cracked the case wide open. He tells Karen that Gavin took money from the mob for this movie and he needs it to tank in order to get them their money back. Case closed. Gavin is the Phantom. Or is he? Because the real Phantom shows up in Gavin's car and shoots him dead. This is where the episode takes a strange turn, or a swerve, if you will. There is a new staff member in the flag organization named RC, and he's a mechanic. Michael calls RC to set, and as soon as he gets there, he immediately starts hitting on a girl, but she thinks he's O.J. Simpson, and he just goes along with it in order to get laid. It's very strange.
Yeah, right. RC, I've seen you. You're the guy that runs through the airport and jumps over the luggage. Do you like doing TV commercials?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it beats the heck out of being chased by linebackers. Why, I remember one game, big game, Super Bowl. I was dodging tackles to the right. I was dodging tackles to the left. And then you know what happened?
No, what?
I scored.
Back on set, this is the big day where Michael is going to be doing the stunts for his own stuntman. RC walks up and he's like, hey, security just found Gavin shot to death in his car. And no one blinks. No one is sad for a second that Gavin has been murdered and that this murder occurred on studio grounds. They don't even pause production to be like, hey, everyone, the producer was just found murdered. They're just like, action, rolling. It's amazing. Michael's getting ready to do the stunt sequence. Meanwhile, the Phantom uses his pistol to knock out RC. He then knocks out a stuntman, steals his truck. Michael and Liz, the starlet, are running through this crazy stunt sequence where they're shooting and blasting. Michael's doing wheel kicks. There's all kinds of karate and cowboy fighting and shooting. But then the Phantom pulls up and pulls a gun on Michael Knight. Kit to the rescue once again. Phantom flees in his truck. And now we have a car chase across the studio lot. And I think they cross a lot like 3 times because they reuse like every location and every stretch of road they can. It's fantastic. But this being an active film set, of course, they drive through a fake brick wall. They drive through a haunted house style spinning ice tunnel.
They drove through the Kooky Tunnel. They basically just are riding on the tram tour.
Yeah, there's a flash flood. They're Tokyo drifting all over the place. Finally, it breaks down into a chase on foot across the lagoon set. As expected, the director and cameraman catch up and start rolling.
Right here! Right here! Shoot it right down! Lots of energy! Keep it... No sound! Keep it going! Looking good!
Kit remotely activates the animatronic shark from Jaws, and that gives Michael the edge he needs to knock out the Phantom and unmask him. Surprise! It was Karen's secretary all along, Robert Englund. The director offers Michael a role in that Maui picture he's been going on about, and Michael takes it. Yeah, he knows he's going to be working on a beat soon. After, Michael and Karen are crushing hot dogs from the studio commissary when RC shows up wasted off his ass on champagne. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he sees a robed Phantom figure riding by on a bicycle, and he comically pours out his glass. The end.
You know, I thought Why aren't they making a horror picture? This is a Phantom episode. It's a spooky episode. Why are they making a goddamn Western? I think it was because they needed to do dangerous stunts, and explosions are easier to think of than, and like guillotines or, I don't know, anything from a horror picture, I guess.
There's something quintessentially Hollywood in like the broadest, most basic sense about showing cowboy stuntmen. Maybe it's because of all the decades of Wild West shows. And I don't mean the 1800s. I mean like the 1970s and 80s. But also, Western action was such a fixture of like daytime television for so long. It's just kind of synonymous with movie making in a way that horror films are not.
When you first see the monk in the mask, he comes up to talk to Gavin through like a confessional or a bookshelf or something, and you're like, oh, that's Robert Englund. Well, no question about it.
The Phantom's mask was one of those transparent party store masks, and you're like, oh, well, obviously that's Robert Englund. I wonder if that's because we knew that Robert Englund was sort of Freddy Krueger at this point. He was
I guess you knew.
approaching the height of his fame, and they just didn't want to cover it up, you know?
Good point.
I thought it was funny that even in the mid-'80s, they were remaking an epic film, and they were updating it to have like cars and machine guns and karate when it was originally a Western.
Yeah, and Slim Pickens was super pissed about it.
And the studio was thinking it would be better for the bottom line to just shelf it. I was like, oh my God, these are all the same things that are going on right now.
Those who do not learn from history are doomed to reboot it.
There are three very strange things about this episode. One is that it starts with a stuntman doing stunts, and these are Knight Rider-ass stunts we've seen 100 times before. And then there's an explosion, they're like, oh no, now the stuntman is really hurt. Well, it just looked like a cool stunt, because he ran through 4 explosions before the 5th one got him. And maybe it's because it's daytime TV, but there was no blood, there was no like blown off limbs.
And then landed perfectly on the mat.
So he lands on the mat. He still looks like David Hasselhoff. And so you're like, okay, those other stunts were fake, but this one is like real fake. And it's weird to open with the idea that stuntmen are actually getting hurt and then show it by doing stunts that are bloodless, because you have to really raise the bar to make it appear like something has gone drastically wrong. But in the rest of the episode, they're driving, robots are exploding, people are getting knocked out, they're fighting, people are getting karate kicked in the face, and I'm like, okay, but these are all stuntmen, like, obviously, because they've taken us backstage in effect. It's very weird, because you can't really suspend your disbelief when it's about real stuntmen getting hurt, and then Michael is running in and out, and sometimes he's doing choreographed stunts, and sometimes the project is getting sabotaged with real danger.
What you didn't see was that upon the 5th explosion, the guy's organs liquefied. It was all internal hemorrhaging. Yeah. So,
Kit, give me a scan of his vitals. He doesn't have any, Michael. They've blown out his asshole. The second weird thing about this episode is that the butt of the joke is Hollywood. They're like, oh, Hollywood, it's a real Shark Tank, and everyone's a vain, backstabbing phony. But it's like, Hollywood is the thing that is creating this episode. And so, it's Hollywood production people who are lampooning Hollywood, and obviously going with all the stereotypes of vain actresses and scheming producers.
Vaino.
But B, are we supposed to think that Michael Knight is like just a Joe American man of the people, and these actors are all phonies?
He's a literal phony. Doesn't even have the right face.
That's true. They faked his death. He has an empty grave. The third crazy thing, which I'm always going to bring up when we do an episode of Knight Rider, is that they've developed artificial general intelligence and they're using it to solve petty car-related crimes when they could be trying to solve all the world's problems. It's so crazy.
What you also never saw in the show is Mr. Feeney sitting in a dark room, all secret, talking into a microphone through the car speakers somewhere
Right,
in the back
in
of
the
the
trunk.
Winnebago that nobody knows about. Michael, I'm starting to sweat. What? That doesn't make any sense, kid. I mean, I'm losing radiator fluid. Can someone bring me a sandwich?
Michael, what if they put my artificial brain in a robot? Then I could get out of the trunk, Michael.
Michael, don't forget a parking place in the shade.
Well, that brings us to Stevil Part 2. And it uses the exact same intro as Stevil Part 1, with Steve saying,
Yeah,
like, it's a little scary, and then
I
the
was
kids,
shocked.
and I was like, wait a minute, am I watching the wrong episode? You recycling bastards. Steve is scared.
It's 3 hours into Halloween. I'm not sleeping tonight. I'm not sleeping tomorrow night. I might not even sleep until Thanksgiving.
It's 3 hours into Halloween, and he's still traumatized by his Stevil experience from the year before, or several years before. Doesn't want to fall asleep. Doesn't want to have the nightmares again. Ground up Stevil, flushed him down the toilet, but still, he ain't going there. He decides to stay awake by bouncing a basketball really loudly until Laura comes and yells at him.
He name drops Jolt Cola, which was a super caffeinated cola back in the 90s.
He gives a Lord of the Dance a good burn, and he gives a Jolt Cola name drop. Quintessential 90s action right there. He decides to prevent falling asleep by watching ABC and immediately falls asleep.
Another sick burn.
As soon as he falls asleep, Stevil comes out of the toilet.
Ghoulies style.
The lights blink out, and when they blink back, Stevil is there with Steve.
I spent the last year hanging out in sewers, bobbing for rats.
His goal this year is to steal Steve's soul. So he starts sucking his soul through his eyeballs, but then Steve wakes up. I guess we knew it was a dream because we saw him fall asleep, but still, it still counts. Then we get a Lord of the Dance burn, a Jolt Cola mention. Then Carl comes home from his late shift. He's had too much candy, and he wants to take a nap. But Steve tries to warn him and says,
Jump in your house up there. It's Halloween. You can't sleep.
and Carl's like, shut up, asshole. Ain't gonna see no Stevil. Nightmares are just nightmares. They don't mean nothing. Be a grown-up. Be a man. And then, of course, Steve is like, yeah, I'll be a man. A manly man. Or something. And I don't even remember if there's a joke.
But also, he says,
This is just a hunk of wood.
So Carl goes to bed and, of course, has a nightmare. He comes down the stairs carrying a giant bucket of brittle, which I could really go for because I like brittle. And there's a big box in the living room, and it's for him. And he opens it up, and it's a dummy that looks just like him. I called it Carlville before I knew its real name. Stevil and Carlville. Doesn't quite work. Stevil breaks down the door and turns the Carl dummy into a living evil dummy.
You can call me Carlsbad. We've got plans, Flesh Boy.
Yeah, big plans.
Plans? To rob and murder?
Nah, we're going into show business.
Oh, even worse.
And then the dummies do a dance routine.
Can we just have a moment to appreciate the fact that you have two little people in Stevil and Carlsbad helmets doing a choreographed routine that they're going to take to Vegas to a boombox? That was incredible. My jaw was a drop.
I will not celebrate it. This is what they call filler, Jeff.
All killer, no filler. I would have watched a half hour of just those two little guys getting down to a boombox.
The episode was mostly the dummies doing dance routines.
There was moonwalking.
Stevil did do a pretty good moonwalk, actually. I'll give him that. The guys run upstairs. They push Carl's unbelievably tall bureau in front of the door after the dummies axe through it and give the obligatory, here's Johnny. I was like, Carl will never be able to get his socks out of the top drawer of this bureau. It's going to come right down on him like some kind of vending machine or something. And then the dummies do like a comedy routine where they're popping out of the drawers of the bureau, and they close one drawer and they pop out of the other drawer, and they grab Carl by the nose, and then Carl's like, this is it. This actually made me chuckle. Carl goes, help, Steve, and Steve puts him in a half Nelson, and he's like, help me, not the dummies.
That was a pretty good slapstick.
The lights go out and Steve disappears. Carl gets spooked by a bunch of empty creaking doors and hinges and opening things. Then he runs downstairs and looks for Steve. Steve is in the kitchen, having been completely soul-sucked. The lightning flashes and the dummies appear again. They attack Carl. He chucks them through a window, but Stevil has sucked out Steve No, Steve, human Steve, now has Stevil's soul, even though Stevil is still evil, but now feels guilty about it. So now Steve is also evil, and he soul sucks Carl. And then Carl wakes up. He tells Steve about his nightmare and apologizes for making fun of him, and it's very heartwarming. And then in a postscript, the dummies open in Vegas, but they bomb. The end. This episode, I hate to say it, it did not reach the heights of Stevil I. There was very little to zero dismemberment. I guess that's all that needs to be said, really.
I think they blew their budget on the Carlsbad dummy and bringing in a second little person and choreographing a dance routine with the guy in the Stevil suit, because the first episode had the whole family in it doing all sorts of shtick. Everyone got murked in like crazy over-the-top ways in the first episode, and they just brushed everyone off screen right away in this follow-up episode. And I was kind of surprised that Reginald VelJohnson got any screen time himself. I had a thought while watching this when the two little cousins are like hamming it up. They're dressed as Men in Black for Halloween. I thought, is Urkel secretly terrified that younger kids are going to come on the show and pull an Urkel and replace him?
Steal his thunder, I bet.
So what was going on here? Was Stevil dreamwalking in between their brains? Is Stevil a dream demon, Freddy Krueger style?
Stevil doesn't exist. It was just a dream, and by bitching about it so much, Steve gave his bad dreams to Carl. Also, Carl had a tummy ache from too much candy.
Would you say that Urkel incepted Reginald VelJohnson with Stevil?
I would say that.
In the tail end of the episode, when things really descend into the lowest level of nightmare after Urkel has been soul-sucked, they've replaced all of the kid-friendly decorations with Army of Darkness-style corpses. They're like strewn all over the place.
That was cool.
And then when evil Steve, Urkel, who has Stevil's essence in his body, when his voice drops all low and he shoots those crazy spectral beams out of his eyes into his uncle's face and then rips his soul out, that was pretty gnarly.
If Stevil could swap his soul into Steve, then he already has a soul, and he doesn't need to suck Steve's soul because he's still evil afterwards. What's his endgame? Why does he need to suck those souls?
Their stated goal was that they wanted to be human, and I was like, oh, they're going to project themselves into human bodies. But no, they wanted to suck the souls so they would be dummies with human souls trapped inside, which would qualify them as human somehow, even though they could then puppeteer or possess the empty husks of the humans they have soul sucked.
Yeah.
Very strange. What the factor? High.
What do you want?
Oh, not much. Just your soul.
Body count, Fright Knight, 0.
No, there was 1. Gavin got shot to death in Knight Rider.
Oh, shit. Body count for Knight Rider, 1 greedy producer.
And 1 robot.
Body count for Stevil II.
Gotta say 0.
Scare factor for Knight Rider, I'm going to put that at 0.
Yeah.
No real shock either. Special effects were the star of that episode. So either you were thrilled or you were not. Very little scare or shock involved. Scare factor for Stevil II. I mean, they did warn us at the front of the episode.
Yeah, very scary.
It wasn't as scary as seeing the whole family get wiped out.
Yeah, chopped
like
up and
in part
cut to
1.
bits and frozen to death.
But the soulless Urkel at the end, I thought it was pretty effective.
Mm-hmm. Scare factor medium.
Gross factor for Knight Rider, I'm going to say 0. Family Matters.
0? Except for Stevil coming out of the toilet, maybe? If you're offended by that? I feel like they did give him a spritz down.
Gross factor for your episode, 0.
0.
What the factor for Knight Rider? It was a little weird with the stuntmen getting injured by showing them doing stunts. But other than that, pretty straightforward. There's a Scooby-Doo style plot about someone in a costume trying to interrupt the business. What the factor for Family Matters? I'd say fair to middling with all that weird soul-sucking, soul-swapping, becoming human while staying a dummy.
Yeah, I guess we made our case already for that one.
Theme of Halfway to Halloween. I would say my episode had some scary trappings.
0.
Was not fully there. Family Matters was all in on Halloween.
All the way to Halloween.
I think they don't get the point because it was too Halloween.
It was too much Halloween.
Come on, you got to give me something. Totally 80s. You know, you just had power suits with some big shoulder pads. You had some crazy action on the back lot. There was Jaws in there. That is quintessentially 80s. Family Matters, hella 90s. What do you got?
Just Men in Black.
You've got Don King. You've got Men in Black. Lord of the Dance. So Knight Rider clinches it on body count, and you gracefully gave me the theme of Halfway to Halloween. Family Matters, Stevil Part 2, has a bit of scare factor and a lot of what the factor. So it would be a tie, except for the fact that your episode was more Halloween-y, and that's always got to win on We Bleed Orange and Black.
Stevil II for the Halloween.
So what was nice about your episode is that there were 2 evil dummies, and I feel like that's something we can work with. If we were evil dummies, what would our name be? What is your evil dummy name, Ryan?
Ryan doesn't count like a scream.
No, it's got to be some form of evil. Second place goes to Rybomination, but I think the best one I came up with was Unscrupulous. Mine is Jeffiendish.
Yeah, Jeffiendish. I could go Ancient Evil. Yeah, never mind. I rescind my comment.
All right, so you're Ryan Scrupulous. I'm Jeffiendish. Let's go to Vegas, baby.
Hey, Ryan Scrupulous. What did Arnold Schwarzenegger say to the Sarah Connor dummy?
I don't know. What?
You termited. Hey, Ryan Scrupulous. What do you call a puppet when it's on a foot instead of a hand?
What do you call it?
A sock. You know, Ryan Scrupulous, I gotta tell you, I really, really love this doll.
How much?
I'm marrying it.
Rerun for your life.